You've been sleepwalking through your own story for far too long. Every single day, you wake up to the same predictable plot, the same boring dialogue, the same cast of characters who drain your energy and contribute nothing to your narrative. But tonight can be different. You know that restless feeling that creeps in when the lights go out? That gnawing sense that you're living below your potential? That's not anxiety talking, that's your authentic self screaming to be heard. It's been trapped under layers of other people's expectations, societal programming, and your own limiting beliefs. Here's what most people won't tell you. Your fate isn't some cosmic lottery ticket drawn before you were born. It's not written in the stars or predetermined by your circumstances. Your fate is written fresh every single day through the choices you make and, more importantly, the choices you avoid making. Quentin Tarantino understood this better than most. He didn't have connections in Hollywood. He didn't come from money. He didn't even finish high school. But he had something that most people surrender before they even start: complete ownership of his creative vision. He refused to let others write his story. While everyone else was following the established rules of filmmaking, Tarantino was creating his own language. While others waited for permission from the industry gatekeepers, he grabbed a pen and started writing scripts that nobody asked for, but everybody needed to see. The difference between Tarantino and the thousands of aspiring filmmakers who never made it isn't talenties. The willingness to sit alone in a room and do the uncomfortable work of creation. Tonight, you're going to do the same thing, except instead of writing a screenplay, you're going to rewrite your life. Every master director knows that a film is made in the editing room. You can shoot the most beautiful scenes in the world, but if you don't have the courage to cut what doesn't serve the story, you'll end up with an unwatchable mess. Your life right now is probably an unwatchable mess. Look around you. How much of your daily routine actually moves you toward the person you want to become? How many of your relationships energize you versus drain you? How many of your habits support your goals versus sabotage them? If your honest stand tonight demands brutal honesty, you'll realize that most of your life is filler content. Think about Tarantino's films. Every conversation has a purpose. Every character serves the plot. Every scene either reveals something about the characters or moves the story forward. There's no wasted space, no meaningless dialogue, no characters who exist just to fill seats. Now contrast that with your typical day. How many conversations do you have that lead absolutely nowhere? How much time do you spend with people who add nothing to your story but drama and distraction? How many activities are you doing out of habit rather than intention? The first step in rewriting your fate is becoming ruthless with your editing. Tonight, you're going to identify every single element of your life that's keeping you trapped in mediocrity. This isn't about being mean or selfish. It's about being strategic with your most precious resource, your time and energy. Take out that notebook and start writing. Make a list of every person, habit, commitment, and thought pattern that drains your energy without giving anything meaningful back. Include that friend who only calls when they need something. Include that job that pays the bills but slowly kills your soul. Include that habit of scrolling social media for hours instead of working on your dreams. Be specific. Don't just write negative people, write their actual names. Don't just write bad habits. List exactly what you do that sabotages your progress. This isn't a gentle self-reflection exercise. This is surgery, and surgery requires precision. For each item on your list, ask yourself one simple question. Does this belong in the story I want to tell about my life? If the answer is no, it needs to be cut. Not reduced, not modified, not given one more chance, cut completely. Remember, you can't build a masterpiece on a foundation of mediocrity. Every minute you spend on things that don't serve your vision is a minute stolen from the life you could be living. Here's the harsh truth. You've been treating yourself like a supporting character in your own life. You show up, deliver your lines, and hope that someone else will drive the plot forward. You react to circumstances instead of creating them. You wait for opportunities instead of making them. This is exactly how extras think. Extras show up to set, follow directions, and hope they don't get cut from the final edit. They have no agency, no creative input, and no control over the story being told. Sound familiar? Protagonists operate differently. They don't wait for the script to be handed to them. They write it themselves. They don't hope for the best outcome. They take specific actions to create it. They don't blame the director when things go wrong. They take responsibility for their performance and adjust accordingly. Tarantino's characters embody this protagonist energy. They make bold choices. They create their own opportunities. They refuse to be victims of their circumstances, even when those circumstances are genuinely terrible. They understand that in every situation, no matter how constrained, there's always some element of choice available. When was the last time you made a decision that scared you but excited you at the same time? When was the last time you took action without knowing exactly how things would turn out? When was the last time you prioritized your own vision over other people's opinions? If you can't remember, then you've been living like an extra. But that changes tonight. Protagonists have clarity about what they want and why they want it. They don't chase vague dreams or make half-hearted attempts. They identify their core mission and pursue it with relentless focus, especially when it means disappointing other people. Tonight, you're going to write your protagonist's mission statement. Not some fluffy vision board filled with generic aspirations, but a clear, specific declaration of who you're becoming and what you're willing to sacrifice to get there. Start with these questions. What would your life look like if you were living at your full potential? What impact do you want to have on the world? What legacy do you want to leave behind? What are you willing to give up to make this happen? Write until you have absolute clarity. Then identify the 3 most important goals that would completely transform your life if you achieved them. Not small, comfortable goals that you could probably accomplish without changing much, but the kind of goals that would require you to become a fundamentally different person. Finally, write down the first concrete action you can take tomorrow to move toward each goal. Don't wait for the perfect plan or the perfect moment. Protagonists act with incomplete information because they understand that waiting for certainty is just another form of procrastination. Quentin Tarantino's genius isn't in making people comfortable. It's in making them confront uncomfortable truths about themselves, society, and human nature. His films force viewers to examine their own biases, fears, and contradictions. They reveal the gap between who we think we are and who we actually are. This is exactly what you need to do with your own life. The reason you haven't transformed yet isn't because you don't know what to do. You know exactly what you need to do. The reason you're still stuck is because you're afraid of what you'll discover about yourself when you start digging deeper. You're afraid you'll find out that you're not the victim of bad luck or unfortunate circumstances. You're afraid you'll discover that you've been the architect of your own stagnation. You're afraid you'll realize that every excuse you've been making is just a sophisticated way of avoiding responsibility. This is where most people stop. They'd rather live in comfortable misery than face the uncomfortable truth that they have the power to change everything. They prefer to blame external factors because taking ownership means acknowledging that they could have made different choices all along. But uncomfortable truths are where transformation begins. They're the raw material of greatness. Every person who has ever accomplished something significant has had to face the gap between their current reality and their potential. Tonight, you're going to write your own uncomfortable truths. Start with this question: what am I pretending not to know about my life? Then keep writing until you've exhausted every lie you've been telling yourself. Write about the opportunities you've ignored because they seemed too difficult or risky. Write about the relationships you've settled for because you were afraid of being alone. Write about the dreams you've abandoned because other people convinced you they were unrealistic. Write about the excuses you've been making and the fears that have been controlling your decisions. Don't edit yourself. Don't try to make it sound better than it is. Don't soften the language or find ways to justify your choices. Just write the raw, unfiltered truth about where you are and how you got there. This will be painful. It's supposed to be painful. Pain is information. It's your psyche's way of showing you exactly where the work needs to be done. Every uncomfortable truth you write down is pointing you toward an area where you can improve. But here's what Tarantino understands that most people don't. The truth isn't meant to be comfortable. It's meant to be transformative. When you stop running from your uncomfortable truths and start using them as fuel for change, that's when real growth begins. Once you've written everything down, you'll have a complete roadmap for transformation. Every lie you've been telling yourself reveals an area where you can take action. Every excuse you've been making shows you a fear you need to overcome. Every abandoned dream points you toward your true passion. The hours between midnight and dawn are sacred. This is when the world goes quiet, when the distractions fade away, when you're left alone with your thoughts and your choices. This is when real transformation happens, not in the bright light of day, when everyone is watching, but in the quiet moments when nobody cares what you're doing. Tarantino didn't write pulp fiction during business hours, surrounded by colleagues and critics. He wrote it in solitude, in the early morning hours when his mind was clear and his vision was sharp. That's when the magic happens, when you're alone with your dreams and your determination. Most people waste these precious hours scrolling through their phones, watching meaningless content, or lying awake worrying about things they can't control. They treat the silence like something to be filled rather than something to be used. But tonight, you're going to use the silence to your advantage. You're going to create a detailed action plan for the next 30 days. Not a wishful thinking list or a collection of good intentions, but a concrete strategy with specific steps, measurable outcomes, and non-negotiable deadlines. Start by identifying the one change that would have the biggest impact on your life. Look at the goals you wrote down earlier and pick the one that scares you the most. That's usually the one that will transform you the most. Maybe it's finally starting that business you've been thinking about for years. Maybe it's ending a relationship that's been draining your energy. Maybe it's committing to a fitness routine that will transform both your body and your mind. Maybe it's pursuing a creative project that could change your entire career trajectory. Whatever it is, you're going to break it down into daily actions. What can you do tomorrow? What can you do next week? What can you do by the end of the month? Make each action specific and measurable. Instead of writing, "get in shape," write, "exercise for 45 minutes at 6 a.m. Instead of writing, "start a business," write, "research my target market for 2 hours and identify 5 potential customers." Instead of writing, "be more confident," write, Have one difficult conversation I've been avoiding. The midnight rewrite isn't about making promises to yourself, it's about making a commitment to action. Every successful person understands that the difference between dreams and reality is a detailed plan executed with relentless consistency. Write down your plan in excruciating detail. Include specific times, specific actions, and specific outcomes. Make it impossible to misinterpret or ignore. Put it somewhere you'll see it every day, and then start executing it immediately. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait for the first of the month. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect mood. Start tomorrow morning, because tomorrow morning is when your new story begins. Remember, fate isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create through your daily choices. Every action you take is a sentence in the story of your life. Make sure you're writing a story worth reading. The notebook is sitting in front of you. The pen is in your hand. The silence is waiting for your words. You have everything you need to completely rewrite your fate tonight. You can close this script and go back to your old story, the one where you're a victim of circumstances, where change is too difficult, where your dreams are too unrealistic. That story is always available to you. It's comfortable, familiar, and requires nothing from you except the willingness to stay exactly where you are. Or you can start writing a new story one, where you're the protagonist, where you take full responsibility for your outcomes, where you pursue your vision regardless of what other people think. This story is more difficult, more uncertain, and requires everything from you. The choice is entirely yours. But understand this: every moment you hesitate is a moment stolen from the life you could be living. Every day you postpone is another day the world claims the space you refuse to occupy. Tarantino didn't become a legend by playing it safe or following conventional wisdom. He became a legend by daring to tell stories that nobody else would tell in ways that nobody else had tried. Your life is your story, and right now, it's a story that nobody, including you, is excited to read. But that changes tonight. Tonight, you pick up the pen and start rewriting your fate. Not because it's guaranteed to work, but because it's guaranteed not to work if you don't try. Not because it's easy, but because everything worthwhile is difficult. The world is full of people who live on autopilot, who complain about their circumstances, but never do anything to change them. You can't afford to be one of them. If you've made it this far, if you're still reading, it's because some part of you knows you're meant for something more. The only difference between those who transform their lives and those who stay stuck is this: the first group decides to act before they feel ready. They don't wait for motivation to arrive. They don't wait for fear to disappear. They don't wait for everything to make perfect sense. They act because they understand that fear doesn't disappear before you start, it disappears along the way. They act because they know that clarity comes through action, not through thinking. They act because they've realized that the biggest risk isn't failure, it's never trying at all. So grab that pen, open that notebook, face the reality you've been avoiding, write what needs to be written, cut what needs to be cut, plan what needs to be planned. Your fate is waiting to be rewritten. The only question is, will you be the one holding the pen?